How's it going, everyone? How's it going? This is the Conscious Chicano. Welcome, welcome. Um, Today I'm actually not on my live conscious chats. I'm actually limited on my live streaming, and I maxed out. So I'm just making this video and uploading it, but you do see me live on Instagram. So welcome, people who have just joined me on Instagram. And if you see this video, welcome as well. And I'll be actually go below the description below and read the links. Actually click on the links my Rumble account, and I actually upload a lot of Rumble videos recently, exposing a lot of stuff. That's why, it's more like uncensored information. And also, if you want to get a hold of me on, send me a message more on this topic, more resources, click on my Instagram links below, and also click on my Twitter link, make a Twitter account, add me, and man, there's the community is growing there. We're just exposing a whole lot of stuff. And recently I just had a 4 hour Twitter space chat, and we're just for the first hour I'm just talking about a certain topic that's censored, and then others join me in the conversation, and we just dialogue and exchange information, and there's a lot of jewels of information there. So what you do is go create a Twitter account and click on my Twitter link, add me, and scroll all the way down, and you'll find that Twitter space recording, and just listen to it. 4 hours long. Really a lot of good information, man, just exposing a lot of things. Anyways, so let's get to the topic. So the topic is Mexican and Chicano ancestry in the United States. Okay. So a lot of times we got this whole belief, that Mexicans and Chicanos are foreigners, that they're immigrants, or that we're first or second or third generation, etc. And never does anyone actually get deeper into the conversation. A lot of times, when I come across people, and it's coming from both, the white Americans as well as other Mexicans or even other foreigners, they come across me, and then they ask me, where am I from? And I said, well, I'm Chicano, I'm Mexican, right? And they go, oh, what state? And I'm like, wait a minute. It's like they assume that you're, directly from a certain state in Mexico, when in fact there's a lot of Mexicans have always been here in the United States, even before the artificial borders were drawn, and even before the United States even existed, and even further before even Mexico as a government even existed. So we're going all the way back, and I'm going to actually show you some evidence. It's archaeological, anthropological, and it's ethnography, it's linguistics, and there's so much evidence that shows that Mexicans, we do have, Chicanos, we have ancestry in the United States, and there's so much of it. And so a lot of people think, oh, well, Mexicans are Spanish, right? And that's not true. we have indigenous blood as well, and we're predominantly indigenous, you know, and we have a lot of that cultural indigenous heritage, bloodlines, lineages, genetics, all that stuff. But I'm going to get into it. So as I move on, so and I'm actually going to talk on the Mesoamerican connections with the United States, and more on the focus on the Southwest, even out here in California. I'm from California, Los Angeles, and there's even evidence of you know, that goes before the European colonizers even came, evidence of our ancestral connections. Anyways, I would like to get into the first evidence is the Uto-Aztecan language family. So recently I just made a video all on that topic about the Uto-Aztecan languages, the family. And you know, the Uto-Aztecan language family is a bunch of languages that are native. They're all related, and a lot of scholars suggest that, you know, possibly the earliest people that actually spoke the Uto-Aztecan language are the Shoshones of California. And there might be evidence that there might be even earlier origins, but I think so far that's as far as they go so far. And the Uto-Aztecan lineage travels, you know, all the way in California to even where I'm actually residing in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. You know, we have a tribe here called Tatavians, and they're part of the Uto-Aztecan language family as well. And then we have the Tongvas of Los Angeles, in like, you know, like around the Los Angeles area, downtown, San Gabriel Valley, um, you know, in other areas. And they're part of the Uto-Aztecan language family. And so this Uto-Aztecan lineage, you know, just by language, ancestral language, you know, you can trace like even how people even traveled. So they definitely traveled from northern, you know, the northern parts of the Americas and down southward, right? And travel was not just up down either. It was also down up. It was also horizontal. It was more complex than anything else. And most people just think of just north to south, but people moved everywhere for different reasons, you know. Back, this is pre-colonization before Europeans came to the Americas. So we have from the Shoshones to the Tatavians and to the Tongvas, you know, and we have all the way throughout the Southwest too. And we find the Uto-Aztecan language families in New Mexico. The Hopis, the Zunis are part of that family as well. You have Utah, the Utis, they're part of that as well. Um, and even my people, the Yaquis, you know, who are found in, you know, Arizona and Sonora, Mexico, and they are part of the Uto-Aztecan family language as well. And a lot of what people are, you know, a lot of Mexicans heard about the Chichimecas, right? Chichimecas are usually referred to like kind of like the northern Mexican, you know, indigenous peoples, and they're pretty much most of them are all Uto-Aztecan family related people, and this is just tracing the lineage of the language, and scholars say where there's language, there's also genetic ties, right? Bloodlines, lineages, and so um, people speak and interact with each other, and they reproduce with each other. They form, they have, lineages, so, and that's just natural everywhere. It's just part of human evolution. So we have, even in northern Mexico, all around there's full of Udo Aztecan families there, right there. We even have the Huichol, that they have their Huichol languages and Cora and stuff like that. That's all Udo Aztecan family languages. Um, and then, you got all the way down to Mexico City, and one of the biggest languages spoken in Mexico is called Nahuatl. And and that was actually known as a language of trade. So there was many indigenous languages in Mexico, but Nahuatl was one of the biggest ones, the language of trade, and basically language of business as well, back then. And and even to this very day, many people speak Nahuatl too as well. And you'll find that in, central Mexico, and I mean, it even goes up to northern Mexico as well, and even to Central America as well. And so we find this lineage of relations here, you know. So Mexicans, we definitely have ancestral ties all to this land here in the Americas, pretty much. Um, you'll find it in, some even make the case in Oregon as well, Canada and the United States, definitely, Mexico, Central America, and and this is like in terms of the Udo Aztecan languages, it's definitely in the United States to um, Mexico, Central America. So we have all that right there. Just with the Udo Aztecan language family, that's enough to even establish that Mexicans and Chicanos have ancestry in these lands, um, in the United States. So whenever they tell you, oh, you're not indigenous to this land, right? You're not indigenous to the United States. Oh, that's simply not true. And I forgot to mention, even the Comanches are part of the Udo Aztecan family as well. Comanches of the United States. So that's very interesting. So so we have that, right? So now even they've done genetics, of indigenous people throughout the Americas. And there's a whole genetic trail. And the genetics shows, yeah, there's a trail from, all the way from Alaska to Canada to the United States, Mexico, Central America, and even South America as well. So there's a genetic trail. We're all related, right? We're not foreigners. We're not illegals, right? So there's definitely genetic trails there that all these indigenous brown people, we have ancestry genetic ties to this land prior to colonization, right? And even people who are, say, of mixed blood, because we have a historical colonization, a historical rape of, by Europeans. They raped a lot of indigenous women. Well, even when people are mixed, they still have genetic ties, they have genetic ties to this land. You have that indigenous blood in you, you definitely have genetic ancestry and ties to this land. So so it's not just only the Udo Aztecan family language, right? Languages, but it's also, we have a genetic trail. Okay. So that's the second thing that I like to go into. Now, the third thing we have was known as the Mesoamerican staple. That was like the majority of what we actually, usually those essentials that we usually would eat. And these staples are called, it was beans, squash, corn, and chile. And so, and you'll find this um, Mesoamerican staple, even a lot of the Southwest indigenous people they eat all this as well. Many natives eat this food right here. It's indigenous to these lands, right? Um, and you see that, you know, um, especially the whole corn. The corn was actually genetically modified from a tail seedling. Uh, you know, it was genetically modified into what we know as maize, and now we have different variations of maize, and so it was actually genetically modified with human intervention, indigenous human intervention, and this is natural. This is not mixed with chemicals and pesticides as they do nowadays with this GMO unhealthy food, but back then it was more natural, right? So the Mesoamericans, when I say Mesoamerica, it's pretty much the civilization that existed in Mexico, like around Mexico City, I mean, pretty much the whole middle part of Mexico, and even goes to like Central America, and it's like a big bulk of Mexico, right? And what was next to Mesoamerica is definitely the Southwest. There's definitely a direct connection with the Southwest, and there's native elders who even believe that they believe that the Mexica Aztecs were from the Southwest. So um and so we have the whole corn thing being, pretty much maize created by the Mesoamericans, right? And there's a former professor of mine, Dr. Sintley. Um, he's a teacher at UCLA, and he makes the case that, he said he learned this from a native elder that to just follow the corn, and that's where the people travel. Now, there's Eurocentric anthropologists that say, "Oh, this is not true. The corn can travel without people, being there in some sense." And that's not actually true. Like wherever you see trade, going on, humans travel with that trade, you know. So in most cases, I would say wherever the corn went, that's where the people went and traded it. We had marketplaces, we had tianguis all throughout the Americas. And so we had even what's called porstecas, and people just traded a lot of food and a lot of resources, that we had this trading system. We had our own form of commerce back then, and people traveled. They traveled, and there was needs, and people needed certain things and to survive or to live and all that. So they traveled, migrated back and forth. This is why I say we're not immigrants, and it's just natural for Mexicans, Central Americans to be traveling to the United States because we've been doing this thousands of years, even before any European borders. So, and so Dr. Seatley makes the case that you just follow the maize, and the maize is like, okay, um, it traveled everywhere. You find maize in not only in Mexico, Central America, but also in the United States, Canada. I mean, you have even in South America as well. So definitely, there's connections all throughout the Americas. You'll find natives to this very day eating corn, you know. So that's, you know, that's the case right there. And a lot of times, like, well, Dr. Seatley also made another investigation on the whole concept of Aslan. Many people think that Aslan is a mythical place and this and that, but it's an actually historical place. And he can't, I mean, like most scholars, they can't absolutely tell you exactly where Aslan, but there's a lot of evidence pointing towards the Four Corners area of the United States. There's some people make the case that Aslan is in Canada. I heard that before, and some say Aslan was like, they're in Nayarit in Mexico. Um, but there's evidence that Aslan could be in the Four Corners area, and Dr. Seatley actually makes that case, and he discovers some interesting facts by early maps, that were written by the Spaniards, and some locations mention something like, that has the word Aztecas, and and this is what the Spaniards believe where the Aztecas may have, actually where they were either um, living or originated from there. And there's actually elders who confirm that. So Dr. Seatley talked to a lot of elders, and there's a lot of elders who came out and say, yeah, the Aztecas, the Mexicas, right? They came from these lands, and they traveled, downward and stuff. Um so that's interesting. There's cases like that, and so Dr. Seatley unravels that, and he makes the case that that Salt Lake City may be where the Mexicas left, because they talk about leaving some kind of like a lake and everything. And if you guys don't know, it's like the Mexicas travel from out of a like a place like a lake, and guess what? There's Salt Lake City right there. And so he says there's a possibility that you know like Chico Mostoc, Aslan, like the caves and coming out of the lake and this and that, um, where the Mexica travel from Aslan, Chico Mostoc, and all the way down to what's called Mexico City. There may be the case that it could be around the Four Corners area of the United States, and there's evidence of that. So, and it's not absolute, but there's, that it may be the case. It's a possibility. So he actually highlights that. He actually has a book on that too, on the maize, and so it's not only just that though. It's like a lot of times Chicanos like to rely on the whole Aslan and say, oh, Aslan is the whole Southwest, and the whole Southwest is Aslan, right? And we have to go further than that. It's like, and Aslan is just like the place of the Mexica origins, right? And that's just one aspect, but there's even more evidence, not just with the Mexicas, but a lot of other natives that have origins in the United States and travel back and forth. And like I say, I make the case that even what is known as the Chichimecas, or the northern Mexican indigenous people, there was no borders there, and we had ancestral ties. We lived on that land, both sides of the border. And like I said, for example, my people, like the Yaquis, the Apaches, they they lived on both sides of the border. A lot of the natives that lived near the border, there was no borders there, and they lived on both sides. So there's evidence right there that natives are, you know, they're indigenous to this land, and we have to stop thinking of ourselves as foreigners, right? Because they program that into your mind that we're foreigners, we don't belong to this land, that, oh, we're second, third generation, fifth generation. That's all a bunch of nonsense when you actually look into the ancestral heritage that we have. We've been traveling back and forth for thousands of years before any Europeans established their border. So, more evidence. So we not only had the Uto-Aztecian lineage, found in the United States and all the way in Mexico. We have a genetic trail as well from northern to south, and we also have the food. You follow the food where it travels. That's where the people traveled as well. We have, the beans, squash, corn, chile, a lot of like Mexican like culture, like the indigenous of Mexico and Mesoamerican culture. You find a lot of that in the Southwest as well. And also Dr. Seatley unraveling some evidence that, of Utah or the Four Corners area, and elders attesting that the Mexica came from the Southwest and traveled downward. And oh, I also forgot to mention the Anasasis. There's archaeologists even think that they point at evidence that there were Mesoamericans um, who are connected with the Anasasis. So the Anasasis are one of the earliest native peoples in the Southwest. And they say many of the Southwest indigenous people may have, originated with also the Anasasis as well. So, and there's definitely Mesoamerican evidence of the connected with the Anasasis. So that's even is interesting as well. That gets pretty deep there. Um, and then there's a whole case of the Turquoise Road. Um, I remember reading Michael D. Cole from Olmecs to Aztecs. He's a famous archaeologist, and he mentions it in his book. And there's definitely was trade going on throughout. It was called the Turquoise Road, where they would trade turquoise. And before, archaeologists thought, oh, turquoise was traded from the Southwest to Mexico, and just that was the only route. But actually, now they finding evidence that it's the opposite, where turquoise was mass produced in Mexico and sent to the Southwest as well. So there's definitely trading going on there, and there's evidence of that. And wherever there's trading, there's definitely people going along, and and they're moving with whatever they're trading with. So traveling, you can actually think of trade in sense almost like kind of like a mailman, where the mailman, he's sending his mail and he's traveling. Guess what? People end up residing wherever they move, right? They end up establishing themselves. So trade was going back and forth throughout the United States and Mexico, all that, all those regions right there. So we also have copper bells. Copper bells are also found in the Southwest and in Mexico as well. And that was being traded as well. So that's not as turquoise, copper bells. Also, we have chocolate. So chocolate was a big time. It was popular in Mesoamerica, and we find evidence of chocolate all throughout the United States, and especially in the Southwest. So we have that as well. So chocolate was very popular. So, like I said, wherever you see the trade going, that's where the people are going as well. Um, and we also have the ball courts. Mesoamerica is famous for their ball courts, and you find the ball courts in the United States as well. So I actually have a friend of mine who's kind of revitalizing the whole ball court sport, or not sport, but kind of it was a ceremony. It was part of cultural traditions, and they have this rubber ball. The rubber ball was actually created in the early Olmec, you know, civilization, and the ball courts were actually spreading all throughout Mesoamerica as well as the United States. And when they actually practice, they have this big rubber ball, and they it's almost like soccer. Actually, some people even make the case that early soccer actually came from this whole concept of the ball courts, and you don't use your hands, right? You hit the rubber ball with your hip. So that's part of a native tradition that still exists to this very day. And there's Chicanos and out here who are into their culture, and they're definitely still practicing that. So we have the ball courts, and even the mound building, and the mound buildings and the temples, same thing, same concepts actually, and they're all pretty much like this, pretty much the same people just traveling around and building these mounds, these temples. And I remember when I was taking a whole anthropology on Mesoamerica, the professor was talking about how the temples were being built, and it was like there was little they would start from small, like little mounds, and then they would build it more and more and more and more, where it got bigger, and became huge temples. That's right. Even to this day, they discover, oh, they think it's a mountain, right, or something, or a hill. Actually, a hill. They think it's a hill, but it's like, oh, it's a temple. It's just the over time, um, the there's a lot of nature just takes over, and it just ends up looking like a hill, but it's not only a hill, but they find structures below in these mounds, and you find it all throughout Mesoamerica as well as the United States. So there's definitely cultural connections going on. All these native people are all related. They're all, we can't see them as see that Eurocentric anthropologists want to say, oh, these are separate and distinct people and unrelated. And that's just their tactic to use divide and conquer. And matter of fact, most of these natives out here, actually, they are all related. Let me take that back. They're all related, interconnected, and just the same people pretty much traveling. And what some they have they have common groups, and then they separate and form their own groups and combine with other groups, and that's human evolution. Groups just end up forming and dispersing, and more groups are created and combining, and people travel back and forth horizontally everywhere. So travel and group formation is very complex, and even to this very day we see this happening. Um so yeah, we have those right there, and so that's actually some of the main ones I actually would like to mention. And they even found that there's even telecommunications as well. There's a networks that existed in Mesoamerica in the Southwest, United States. There's definitely telecommunication going on, networks. They even find irrigation systems. Um, a lot of different systems that were intertwined, interconnected. with Mesoamerica and the Southwest. There's so much evidence there, and we had this is our ancestral ties to the United States, to the and we have that ancestral ties to Los Angeles, California, Southwest, Utah, New Mexico. I mean, there's so much to even talk about on this whole subject, but it's that's the evidence there, and yet they want to claim that we're foreigners, and we buy into this nonsense. We buy into this nonsense, and this is not this is not true. We have ancestral heritage and ties to this land, and we have to really study this, and we actually, I even challenge a lot of educators out here, people who have platforms where you share knowledge or teach, or your professors or teachers or scholars, or just people who have platforms out here. Start talking about this, mention that you're not an alien, right? You're not alien to this land. You're not a foreigner, right? You're indigenous to this land. You have ancestral ties, to this land for thousands and thousands of years. And I just mentioned, let me just recap, we have the Uro Aztecan family language, lineage, right? We're all pretty much connected there, most of us, yeah. Uro Aztecan family goes from all throughout the California, the Southwest, to northern Mexico, central Mexico, to Central America. We have that right there, and we have genetic ties all throughout the Americas, Alaska, Canada, United States, Mexico, Central America, South America. There's genetic trails, and you can find that evidence. There's even books on that, that talk about that. And then we have common foods. Wherever the food, went, that's where we went. We migrated there. We traded, right? And these Eurocentric anthropologists will try to say, no, the food just travels on its own, right? That's just nonsense. In most cases, people travel with the food as well in order to get it to a certain place, right? They travel with it, right? And we actually had tianguis. We had, the precursor of swap meets in some sense too, as well. And we traded food and goods and a lot of things, and so food was one of them. And just follow the corn, right? Follow the corn, follow the beans, follow the squash, follow the chile, even follow the chocolate as well. There's so much to unravel there. And Dr. Seatley makes this case of following the cord, and you find it all throughout the Americas, and it was actually, the maize was created in Mesoamerica. So there's Mesoamerican ties all throughout the Americas, and he makes also the case that there's evidence, there may be possible evidence of, Mesoamerican, definitely the Mexica Aztecs, having connections with native people of the Southwest, in particular the Four Corners area, and even more in particular, possibly Utah, Salt Lake City. So that's interesting right there. And it's not absolute, but there's a possibility. So, and also we have the whole turquoise road, like I said, where there's trade, people travel. Turquoise road, turquoise was being, exchanged back and forth from the Mesoamerica to the Southwest, and and back and forth. Um, you know, so people traveled and they traveled wherever they traded, you know, and they resided there. They established themselves there. Um, Even the copper bells as well. You could find that evidence of that being traded as well. And we also have possible connections with the earlier Anasasis too, as well. There's evidence of Mesoamerican peoples who were connected with the Anasasis. And I go as far as saying the Anasasis are probably traveled down over there as well. It's the same people, you know. So Mesoamericans, you know, I would say that they could be possibly Anasasis as well. So um, and so we even have the whole ball court system too. You find it all throughout Mesoamerica and the United States. So we have evidence of that as well. And the whole mound building and temples all throughout Mesoamerica and the United States as well. So we have a lot of evidence of cultural exchange and relations, you know, of Mesoamerica with the United States and a ton of it in the Southwest. So California, you know, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Texas. I mean, there's so much evidence of Mesoamerican culture there, and and it's just natural to think, you know, hey, it's like, you know, they're actually right next to each other, so how can we even think otherwise? You know, it's just natural to think that hey, these are the same people. They're just moving around, traveling, right? There was no artificial European borders back then, and so it's just logical to and scientifically, you know, it's to conclude that these are related peoples and they may be even the same people as well. And there's so much evidence of that. Anyways, I guess I'm going to end it here. Don't forget to go down below, and if you know want to contact me more on this subject, click on my links on Instagram and send me a message. I'll send you a lot of resources and information of the connections of Mesoamerica and the United States, especially the Southwest and Mesoamerica. And also click on my Rumble account, and I'll be uploading a lot of good. Actually, I just uploaded a lot of good videos recently. Go check them out. And join me on Twitter Space, where we expose a lot of stuff. It's conscious chats, uncensored. Just create a Twitter account and go add me and go listen to those recordings, and also look at my you know, tweets and retweets, and I'll be posting whenever I have a Twitter Space chat. So definitely, and I guess I'm gonna end it here. And just remember, just don't be woke, be conscious. All right, see you guys later. Have a good day.